What are subtle auditory differences in phonetics? Imagine listening to two sounds that seem almost identical but, upon closer attention, reveal tiny distinctions. These small differences are what we call subtle auditory differences in phonetics. They are the minute variations in speech sounds that our ears can detect and that help us tell one sound from another. These differences are not always obvious but are essential for understanding language nuances. In phonetics, which studies how speech sounds are made, transmitted, and perceived, these subtle distinctions mainly fall under auditory phonetics. This field focuses on how our ears and brains pick up on tiny sound differences. For example, when you hear the difference between the sounds of the letter P in pat and B in bat, your brain notices a slight difference in voicing, or whether the vocal cords vibrate. These differences can be in pitch, loudness, length, or quality. For instance, voice quality variations like breathy voice or creaky voice can change how a word sounds and sometimes even its meaning. Think about the difference between a normal voice and a voice that sounds breathy or raspy. These are subtle changes in how the vocal cords vibrate. Vowel sounds also have subtle differences. The position of the tongue and lips affects the sound. The E in C is a high front vowel, while the A in father is a low back vowel. The slight change in tongue height and backness creates acoustic differences that our ears can detect. Consonant sounds have their own subtle variations. The place where the sound is made, like the tongue touching the teeth or the roof of the mouth, can be very close but still different. For example, the difference between a dental nasal and a retroflex nasal involves tiny changes in where the tongue is placed, which listeners can perceive. Acoustic cues like formant frequencies, which are resonant frequencies of the vocal tract, also help distinguish similar sounds. These cues are like the unique fingerprints of speech sounds, allowing us to tell apart sounds that are very close in pronunciation. Understanding these subtle auditory differences is important for linguists who describe languages accurately. It helps language learners pronounce words more precisely and improves speech recognition technology. Interestingly, even infants can detect these tiny differences early on, which shows how sensitive our hearing is to small sound variations. For example, the difference between the vowels in bit and beak is a subtle change in tongue height and duration. This tiny difference changes the meaning of the words, showing how important these auditory distinctions are in communication. In summary, subtle auditory differences in phonetics are the tiny acoustic and perceptual variations in speech sounds. They enable us to recognize and differentiate phonemes, the smallest units of sound that can change meaning in language. These differences are what make speech rich and precise, allowing us to understand each other clearly.